presented is that it's very misleading. The prosecutions are still continuing. All they got is bail. All right? They got bail. That's it. Okay? And the media are presenting this as if the charges have been dropped or something. Nothing to worry about here. This is part of the process. While what they did was a federal crime, and it's a pretty serious federal crime, and they could do time for it, they didn't kill anyone, okay? At least not in this instance, right? Some of these protesters, there have been violent incidents like Renee Good that the protests themselves have instigated and been a part of making happen. But, they just got bail. That's it. The magistrate, and the government, the federal government, what their position is they wanted to hold them without bail. And they got bail. So what? Big deal. And this is being presented as if there's been some big loss. No. In fact, there are more charges coming for other people. And the ones that have already been charged that are being released on bail, when they start doing some investigating in background, there could very well be more charges against them too. And there will be many more arrests in Minnesota and in the Minneapolis-St. Paul anti-ICE radical loons that are running around. So don't let anyone tell you that this story is, the charges are dropped, it's over, blah, blah, blah. No, they've just been released on bail. And by the way, this magistrate whose spouse works for Keith Ellison, this is everywhere. This magistrate's in a lot of hot water, okay? Because they obviously are not an impartial judge. They are a political activist judge, and people are looking at that. And this magistrate, which is not a real federal judge, okay, this magistrate could find themselves in some hot water too, maybe even being arrested, because you have outlaw judges. When you have outlaw judges doing activist and illegal things, they can face Johnny Law too, okay? So don't worry, everything is going so well, all right? And and Fox News this morning, thousands marched through Minneapolis, swarmed Target Center demanding ICE removal from Minnesota. These Democrats are, they're marching in Minneapolis. So what? So what? What does this even mean, right? They're out there harassing people that are Democrats like them, because this is mostly the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, which is a very liberal area. So what? There's no nationwide movement going on, just this isolated thing in Minneapolis. And they're doing us a favor, just like these 3 people that Pam Bondi arrested from the church. Right? What these protesters marching through Minneapolis, harassing their fellow Democrats, like in that church, the people in that church mostly were Democrats because it's Minneapolis, St. Paul. They're terrorizing their own people. And the Target Center, I played a video yesterday where some of them went to a Target. They're doing very, very strange things in Minneapolis right now. But what they think they're doing, which is completely crazy, is these protesters believe that they are civil rights protesters, like Martin Luther King and others over throughout American history, and they're not. Okay, Martin Luther King is the textbook example of a great protest movement. There have been others like the suffragettes and others, but the civil rights movement led by the great Martin Luther King Jr. wasn't about defending criminals. It was about defending the right of all Americans to be treated equally in this country. What they're marching for in Minneapolis is helping us out so much as we're in this midterm election season. It's beautiful. What they're marching for in Minneapolis is for the rights of criminals, of course, to stay here, but they're also advocating for the rights of these Somali pirates in Minneapolis to continue doing the things that they're doing. And make no mistake about it, the American people are following this story in Minneapolis of all the fraud. Everybody knows about it. People that don't follow news and politics know about it. This is one of those stories that transcends different things, and people are pretty fed up with it. And whatever they think they're doing in Minnesota, these protesters, what they're really doing is ticking off the country and say, wait a minute, what are you marching for? Illegals that don't have a right to be here, that are hiding out, and these other illegals that are stealing $19 billion of taxpayer money, right? They're not standing up for any legitimate cause that most Americans would even have the slightest bit of sympathy for. Now, they try to get this false narrative going that ICE arrested this 5-year-old child, and we find out that the illegal father actually abandoned the child. And then I saw another report yesterday that said that the mother of the child abandoned the child too, didn't want the child. ICE did what they had to do, you know. And I even saw another story early this morning. There are a lot of children of illegals that the illegals are abandoning. And, you know, you got to wonder, well, that father that abandoned this 5-year-old, is he really the father? Has there been a DNA test done? You know, there's been a lot of discussion of children that are not the child or any relative whatsoever of illegals. They're bringing them into the country and they use the child to get a special status. Maybe the father, that guy is the father, but I think maybe there should be a DNA test done. You know, I'm a father. How many of you are fathers or mothers? Some of you may think I'm a mother of another kind. But, you know, if you're a parent like I am, can you imagine in any scenario where you would abandon your 5-year-old child alone anywhere? Anywhere. Even a room in your house, you wouldn't want to leave your 5-year-old child alone and run? That goes against the most basic human instinct. So I question whether or not this so-called father is really the father. I don't care what the papers say. I'm talking about a DNA test. They may have papers that say he's the father, but that may have been a way for the guy to keep his status. I don't know. Maybe he is the father. I don't know. But I do know this, that the way he reacted is not like any father I know. There are a lot of bad parents out there, but how many of them would abandon their 5-year-old child on the street like that? I don't know any. No matter how bad a parent is, how many would actually do that? Not very many. No, not very many. So there needs to be some DNA testing going on, and we may find out this guy is as much the father of that 5-year-old child as the fake Maryland man is a Maryland man, right? You know, the left and the fake news media, they create these false narratives, and then they become the reality, and then they start living in denial of reality, right? The Maryland man. Oh yeah, the Maryland man, father, husband, all this stuff. We find out he beats his wife. His wife went to court, covered in bruises, beats her. He's a human trafficker, which is slave trafficking. He's in the MS-13 terrorist organization, but they still call him the Maryland man. So something's not right about the so-called father of this 5-year-old child. In fact, I've seen, you know, I used to watch Cops a lot. I don't watch it anymore on reruns and stuff, but when Cops was like the hot show on TV when I was in middle school, high school, I used to watch it a lot. And police would bust people all the time that had kids. I saw a woman who was busted in the parking lot. This was on an episode of Cops. I saw a woman who was busted in a parking lot of a store, and she had a bunch of stolen goods, and she had in the diaper bag of the baby she was carrying. That's right, they arrested her, and the police, they called a social worker, and they took the baby into custody. Years ago, my wife and I were at the mall, Christmas shopping. Those of you in South Florida, this was at the Broward Mall in Plantation. We were near the food court of the mall. It was Christmas time, and there was a woman pushing a baby carriage, and she got surrounded by police. She had a baby in a baby carriage. She got surrounded by police. They went through the baby carriage. She had a bunch of shoplifted items that she had taken from some store. And you know what? They arrested her, even though she had a baby in the baby carriage. And the police took the baby. Right? This is what happens. A lot of times, scumbag criminals use children as a shield. They bring them along with their crimes, and they feel a certain level of protection when they have a child, right? Happens all the time. People get arrested with kids each and every day of all ages, from infants to teenagers and everything in between. But this instance, what? Because this guy's with a 5-year-old child that he claims is his child? He should somehow get some kind of free pass on things? I don't think so. And I don't think you guys do either. But we do need a DNA test to find out if he really is the father. Again, no documents. They can get documents that say anything. But we'll find out. We'll find out. But if he is the father, it's even worse. They should maybe charge him with some child abuse neglect charges as well. You know, you leave your kid on the street like that, 5 years old, that is terrifying. Terrifying. And, you know, these thousands that are marching in Minneapolis, these people on the left are on another planet. Okay, they're on another planet. Now, a lot of these are paid protesters that Tim Walz and the Democrats have in Minnesota because, you know, they're afraid of getting arrested. And, you know, there's going to be some big arrests of big Democrats in the state of Minnesota. It is going to happen. There is a major financial crimes investigation going on. Financial crimes, unlike your standard, you know, robbery and things like that, take a lot of investigating. And certainly Tim Walz and the Democrats brought in these paid protesters in Minnesota to try to save themselves from getting arrested for the financial crimes. But that will happen, and there's probably a lot of record destruction going on, although in the age of computers, I don't know how effective that can be. But there's a lot of things happening right now, and they're all good. And when you have these protesters or this guy with the 5-year-old kid, you know, this is helping this country because people are looking at this and saying, what is going on in Minnesota? I thought this was just something in the Southwest and California, but they even have it in Icicle Land of Minnesota, right? So that's the way it is. All right, now if you'd like to call in, you're certainly welcome to do so. The number is toll-free. It's pinned in the live chat if you're watching live, but the number is 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. It's a toll-free call no matter where you're listening. The Brian Craig Show podcast is available on all podcast platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for The Brian Craig Show and I'll pop up. If you want to catch the show in video form and live, you can do that on YouTube. Just go to YouTube and search for The Brian Craig Show. All right, now, there was also a story. The Undersecretary of the Navy issued a personal apology for those that were discharged over the mandates by the Biden regime. And this is a very good thing. These people are, they're being allowed to rejoin the service at whatever their rank was, and they're getting back pay. So there's a major financial incentive because how many years has it been, right? And they're getting years of back pay. That's a lot of money. No matter what your rank is, it's a lot of money. You can be a private, whatever, all the way up. It's still a lot of money. The higher rank, the more the money, and seniority. But, you know, a lot of incentives. And this apology that's coming, you know, the people that were running this country the last 4 years before Trump's second and non-consecutive term, what they were doing in this country was truly frightening. They were turning this country into one-party rule like in the old days of the Soviet Union, right? They wanted anyone that had a conservative voice, they wanted out of the public. And what they would have done if Kamala Harris or Joe Biden were still president right now, if one of them had won the election and was president right now, the MAGA movement would have been declared by the Justice Department a domestic terrorist organization, and wearing hats like I'm wearing right now, says Trump 2028, would have been illegal. That was their goal. And when they were done persecuting all the conservatives, all the MAGA people, down the road, whenever another movement was a threat to them, they would go after them too. And part of this was this military purge. Look at what Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump have done with the military since this Maduro raid, showing off our fancy new space age weapons from the 25th century. It's almost like a time traveler came back in time and gave Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump these new space-age weapons from the future. We got our military back on track. And that's why there's so much stability in the world. We saw it in Davos, right? You know, in Davos, not only did they all cave to President Trump and suck up to him, these world leaders, but they were put in line. There was chaos in the world because there was no leadership. The United States had abandoned its traditional role as leader of the free world, and now we're back. And President Trump isn't just leader of the free world, he's leader of the world. A big global reset is going on. It's beyond making America great again. It's make the planet Earth great again, saving human civilization, which has been done by President Trump. Because this country, as we know it, was being wiped out, right? The border invasion was, and now they're even admitting this, the border invasion was being used to completely forever change the demographic of this country. And I don't mean racially or skin color. They were trying to wipe out the culture of the United States of America, right? When you bring in tens of millions of people from other countries and they don't assimilate as Americans, you lose the country, like they have in Great Britain, in the UK. It's a similar, that's what they were trying to do here. And they were well on the path to do that. And maybe in some areas, in some pockets, like Dearborn and such, they've been successful. But this was all stopped, and it was stopped by the re-election of President Trump in this second and non-consecutive term. And we're seeing it everywhere, whether it's this apology from the Undersecretary of the Navy, the United States getting possession of Greenland, all these things that are going on. It's not just a global reset, it's a return to normal, right? I mean, you know, how long could this country have survived as the sole superpower if these lunatics that were running this country continued to run it? 4 years, 8 years? Who knows? But we're back now, and the American people are awake. There's been a massive red pilling in this country. More and more people are red pilled every day. Nick Shirley, with his great reporting out of Minneapolis, has done an incredible amount of red pilling. And people have a different expectation from our government now. And this fraud and all this business, it's just not acceptable anymore. All right, I'll take a call or two before I move on to some other stories, but you're welcome to call in if you're watching live. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Mark from Thompsonville, New Jersey. Good morning, Brian.
Hey, New Jersey. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to carry on with the comments you were making about the military and what Trump is doing. And it's wonderful that they should be reinstated and have back pay. But with a lot of things that Mr. Trump is doing, he's implementing plans, and he's getting a gung-ho from his Secretary of War, and then the underlings down the line aren't doing what they're supposed to do, because less than 100 service people have been reinstated thus far and had their back pay.
Well, a lot of people may not want to return to the service. I mean, you know, how long have some of them been out? Years, right? So, you know, life moves on. They're older. They're not in the same shape maybe they were in, right? Or maybe they got a job,
right?
You know, so a lot of people don't want to return.
Agreed. And yes, that's part of it. And I think part of it's being held up by underlings down the road. Look at the judiciary, how they're giving him such a hard time.
Yeah.
It's just one person. It's like David versus Goliath. I mean, Trump is fighting a monster, and then he gets these people locked up, which they rightfully should be, and then they're let back out on the street.
Well, hold on. These people in Minnesota, they just got bail. That's all. They're still facing charges and prosecution, and they're going to be put on trial. They just got bail.
Yes. But what's going on is he's getting fought tooth and nail by the judiciary.
You know, the crimes that they did. You know, the government. You know, prosecutors prosecutors will always ask for the max. You know, I mean, what they did, as god awful as it was, they didn't kill anyone. I mean, they should get bail, right? They're entitled to bail, right? I mean, and we're not against people getting, we're against people getting bail that like kill people and commit, you know, things like that happen, or commit a sexual assault, like in New York. But why should they not get bail? They got bail. They better show up.
Oh no, they should get bail. But I'm talking about someone like Don Lemon, and that's just the Minneapolis situation is just a small part of it. Look what's going on all over the country with the lower courts stopping him. And then you have to wait months and months, sometimes years, until the Supreme Court finally overrules and puts the lower court back into place.
You know, it's very possible that President Trump and Pam Bondi did not want to arrest Don Lemon. You know, Don Lemon, I mean, think about it. If Don Lemon had gotten arrested and perp walked, regardless of whether or not he's a journalist today, the public perception is that he is a journalist. So maybe they got what they wanted by him not getting arrested, Don Lemon. You know, could you imagine the media reaction to him being arrested and perp walked?
Well, yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. Look at all the people that are the contributors on CNN. In a just world, most of them would be locked up for what they did in the Russian collusion, delusion, right on down the line. And they're all CNN contributors.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
Brennan and the rest, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
But listen, I really enjoy your show. I watch it most mornings, and keep up the good work. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care. Thanks for the call. If you're on hold, stand by. Now, I want to just expand on this about Don Lemon. You know, it is very possible that Pam Bondi and the president did not want him arrested and perp walked, because that could cause a major PR disaster. He is perceived as a journalist. He is the perception of him, not by you or me, but public perception is that he's some kind of reporter. And they've had said what was said, and maybe this is how they wanted it to go. Maybe they did not expect to get the judge to sign off on an arrest warrant on Don Lemon. I don't know. You know, it's possible. Have you thought about that? You know, President Trump. What President Trump understands so well is media, how to use media, how to manipulate media, messaging, marketing. That's it. That's one of his biggest skill sets. He knows what he's doing. He's got this Don Lemon thing handled. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Morning, Brian. Stop for 9 out of California.
Hey, what's up?
I just wanted to tell you that this upcoming election in 2026 is possibly the most important midterms this country has ever known. Mm-hmm. And anybody who tells you any different, especially if they list themselves as Republicans or conservatives or MAGA, and tell you any different, they're nuts.
Yeah.
And they're not MAGA, they're not conservatives, and they're not Republicans.
Yeah.
We are in California right now. Our top two individuals who are running for the governor's seat are both Republican. And the top two people are the ones who end up are the ones who are selected for voting. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily a Democrat and a Republican. It could possibly be two Republicans. We need to get this SAFE Act passed. We need voter ID, and we need to take our country back. I am so proud of what the president has done and is doing, and I pray to God that it continues. And as far as Minneapolis is concerned, because all of the focus seems to be on that area, I don't care. We have a mandate to get them out of our country, and he's getting it done.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. You make some good points. Hey, Liz, I appreciate the call. You make a lot. I agree with everything you said. What else could I add to that? You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Doc from Texas.
Hey, Doc. What's up?
Hey, man. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well.
Okay. Hey, look. I see you up early like me. Look.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say you talked about the Department of Justice. What they're not doing. Why is it that when the Department of Justice doesn't do what y'all want them to do, they are traitors? They following the law, Brian. Let it all play out, bro.
There's Kash Patel just fired some more FBI agents, right? Senior FBI agents. A lot of people at the and this isn't true. This is true of other agencies, not just the Justice Department. A lot of people, especially the FBI, are lifelong bureaucrats. See, there used to be a lot of talk about the secret government. And what I've come to realize with Comey, the secret government's the FBI. And that's how J. Edgar Hoover remained FBI director for so long. And FBI directors, when they're appointed by presidents, they have a term. It's a 10-year term. That's why they go from one president to the next so often. A 10-year term. It's crazy. The FBI is the secret government. And there's a lot of very whacked out people that work at the Justice Department that are lifelong Justice Department people, many of them FBI, and they're very bad people. And they were a part of the lawfare against President Trump and the harassment of President Trump, including the breaking in of his home and other things. So
Brian,
they're bad
you
people.
saying all this? I'm listening to you saying all this.
No,
but
hold on a moment as my phones are ringing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, what's the difference is if now when Trump appoints Kash Patel the FBI, head of the FBI, Kash Patel is a loyal to Trump, the loyalist to Trump. He's going to do everything Trump tells him to do.
Kash Patel is loyal to the laws of the United States. See, sometimes...
He's loyal to Trump.
Excuse me.
He's loyal
just
to Trump.
because there are a lot of bad cops, I'm sure you would say, I'm not agreeing with this, but I'm sure you would say, and your friends would agree with you, that Derek Chauvin is a bad cop, right? Or he was a bad cop. That's the cop in the George Floyd case, right? Like you and your friends think that Derek Chauvin was a bad police officer, right?
Yep.
Okay, well, he had a gun and a badge. I'm sure that you and your friends think that Mark Fuhrman was a terrible cop. I'm not saying they're great cops, but, just because somebody is a cop, just because they have a gun or a badge doesn't make them a good person, and you agree with that. So there's a lot of very bad cops in the FBI, and you and your friends think that all of ICE are bad guys. So why are all of ICE...
I didn't say
come
all...
on.
I'm not saying all ICE are bad.
The protest
you
you guys have are against ICE.
Let me tell you what's wrong with ICE.
We're not pivoting to another topic. What I'm telling you is...
I'm saying, you brought up ICE. I didn't.
Well, I'm not here talking about immigration enforcement right now. What I'm talking about is liberal hypocrisy, okay? You believe there's lots of bad cops. I named a few. And there are some very bad ones in the FBI that are being purged out of the Justice Department by Kash Patel.
Brian, so what I'm saying is, you say you purging. So you're going to get all Trump loyals in it. How's that right?
It's not Trump loyalist. It's loyalist to the Constitution of the United States.
It's Trump loyalists. They don't do anything Trump tells them to do.
No.
And you know this, Brian.
No.
Like Pam Bondi. Only reason y'all pissed off at Pam Bondi right now.
What FBI agent has President Trump given an order to? Tell me about it.
He's given it, Brian, please. Please, Brian. Brian, please.
He doesn't give orders to the FBI. He doesn't give orders to the FBI.
Yes, he does. And
No,
know
he doesn't.
Pam Bondi's another one, too.
No.
She's part of the Department of Justice. He told her to go after people, and she went after them.
If Donald Trump is giving direct orders to the FBI, why have Comey and Brennan and Clapper not been arrested?
Really? Because they
and
can't.
Jack Smith. Think about that, all right? My name's Brian. If you're new, make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you're listening. If you'd like to call in, the number is 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. We'll be right back. All right, we're back. I'm Brian. You're listening to The Brian Craig Show. Thanks for tuning in. All right, so President Trump, we got everything we wanted out of Greenland. Davos, this was probably the first time that this Davos event was meaningful, right? Usually they get together and they talk about climate change and all those things. Nothing gets done other than the United States writing a bunch of checks out to these other countries and us getting ripped off. And President Trump went to Davos, took charge. Everybody asked him what he wanted. He told them and he got everything he wanted, including Greenland, and it didn't cost 10 cents. And we're going to get more information in the next week or two as it develops. But the president went on with Bartiromo over on Fox and talked about it. Listen. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to have missiles and interceptor missiles and everything else all over Greenland. Okay, so yeah, so we this is really an amazing event, and what's happened is parts of Greenland are going to become official U.S. territory. They're going to be ours. And we have complete run of all of Greenland, even the parts that aren't U.S. soil, because some of it will be U.S. soil. We don't know how much of it or where, but parts of Greenland are going to become U.S. territory, official U.S. territory, flying the great flag of the United States. and we're going to have complete run of the rest of Greenland, all of Greenland, to do whatever we want, including, by the way, those mineral rights, but militarily. And it didn't cost 1 penny, literally. That's absolutely amazing. And then this story came out today. Look at this. Raising Cane is having a meeting of all the military leaders of the Western Hemisphere. Nothing like this has ever happened. So what is this about? Well, my guess is it's about two things. One, it's about the takedown of the cartels in Mexico, all the way south, wherever they are in Latin America. But the other thing is about the major shift in the North and South American defense with the acquisition of Greenland. It's hard to believe that there's never been a meeting of our military generals like Raising Cane is calling, of all of the Western Hemisphere, not just North America, but the Western Hemisphere, that's South America, the Caribbean, meeting together, or at least the ones they want to meet with. And they're mapping out some major strategy. It's got to be the cartels, and it's got to be involving Greenland and the Golden Dome. These are things that are happening that are what I call these things are things that are universally good. Universally good. How could you be opposed to all of these things? And the answer is you really can't. We have the most competent people running this government that's ever run it before. There have never been people as competent running this country and its various agencies as we have right now. And look at how much has gotten done in just a year. All right, if you want to call in, the number's pinned in the live chat. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, good morning, good morning. You know, I'm laying asleep, and I turn over, and I look at the clock, and I said, geez. And then I said, let me see if Brian is on.
You never
and
know.
here you are. You don't sleep. My God, I can't believe it.
I've
you
been
don't
up.
Sleep. You really
I've been up since about 1:30, 2 o'clock this morning.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just like during the week. I can't sleep in on the weekends.
Oh my, but geez, Brian. But anyway, I'm glad because I heard Doc call. Okay.
Oh, yes.
You know, Doc. I'm going to get an imitation of Doc from Texas. Hello, Brian. How you doing? How's everything going? You okay this morning? And as soon as you say something, he flies off the handle.
Yeah, that's pretty good imitation.
He starts screaming.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good imitation.
Yeah, he starts screaming at you because he can't. He goes into a rage. He's got Trump derangement syndrome.
Yes.
Let me tell you something, and this goes for everyone out there. Why would you be? And Brian keeps on saying it. Why would anyone be against Trump? Why? Because you don't like. What don't you like? You don't like his attitude? You don't like that he went over to Europe and he insulted all these leaders that deserve to be insulted, and he got everything he wanted for the United States of America.
Exactly.
You don't like bullies, but you don't realize the policies that he's doing is everything for us as a country to survive in the future. People are so stupid. It gets me crazy. You could just see it. They just anything he says, it's got to be the opposite. Mm-hmm. The FBI, I wish he turned it into his own personal police office. I believe that this guy is the first president since I'm alive, and I've been around a long time, that's actually become president of the United States and run this like a business, like he should. Like it's been. Yeah. For years we've been saying, well, why don't we put a businessman in the White House? Because politicians, they promise you everything, you get nothing.
Well, you know what? The other presidents in their second term, they always say, "Oh, they're trying to build what they're trying to do." Other presidents in their second term is set themselves up financially for the rest of their lives, so they can live like a king and never work again. This president's not doing that. He's fixing everything in the world.
Exactly, and then you know what they also do when their last term, they get everything ready for their library. That's and you want to know what ticks people off? Trump doesn't really need a library because Trump has places all over the world that say Trump on them.
That's right.
Everywhere you look, at Hollywood Beach, Miami Beach, Las Vegas, Scotland, Trump this, Trump that, and they can't stand it.
That's right.
But the guy is 100% for us. And why can't people just say, thank God we have somebody like in that White House that knows what the hell he's doing? I mean, the economy is going out of the roof. Public, the prices are high, granted, but everything else is going up and everything else is dropping. Gas is cheaper. Everything is getting cheaper.
It is. Everything except Publix in Florida. Yes.
Yeah, well, they were a little ridiculous, but we can go there. I mean, but let me tell you, this guy is doing the best possible job he can for the American people. Why would anyone be the immigration? This guy says ICE isn't doing their job properly. That crap that went on yesterday in the streets of America, they lost the election. You know, elections, like Obama said, have consequences.
That's right.
You don't see Republicans when we lose go out in the streets. The only time we ever had protests, and you almost got run over, I remember, was the Tea Party in Fort Lauderdale.
Yep.
I believe it was you that almost got run over by a car.
One of the Democrats pushed me in front of a moving car.
Yeah, and it was peaceful though. It was a peaceful protest.
Yeah.
We don't go out throwing and cursing and swearing like the language. Everything they do is just low class.
And what they're doing in Minneapolis is, in this election year, we got Mike Lindell running for governor. They're harassing other Democrats because the people in Minneapolis that they're harassing are Democrats like them, and they're turning them they're turning their own people against them.
You know, not for nothing, they're doing everything wrong. We're going after the money that Trump is. What's wrong with going after the money that we spent on Medicare for all these people that were illegal? I mean, you had a governor of California who bragged about it, that you don't have to be a citizen to get. We're going to give you all the health care you want. And now
by the way, these 3 arrests in Minneapolis, all right, where they got bail. They're out. They're still facing charges. You know, who cares if they got bail? What's going on right now with the FBI, with Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, is these are the 2 women are leaders, right? Because they're from leaders of Black Lives Matter, and the white guy, he was at that church harassment at Pete Hegseth's church. What they're doing is going through their financials to find out who's paying them. They're not really interested in these 3. They're not interested in these 3. They want to find out who's paying them. They're putting together the financial network of these radical extremists.
Yeah, Harmony Dillon is going after all of them. She's not letting it drop.
But they're going after. These are the low-hanging fruit. They're looking for the big kahuna.
Oh, yeah, but it takes time.
That's right.
It does take time because they got to go through all these financial records. And not for nothing. How long has this fraud been going on in little Somalia up there in Minnesota?
Exactly.
They've got people that are saying since like 2015. I mean, come on already. I mean, and everyone's looked the other way. Matter of fact, where is Omar? How did she get all that money? People talk about Trump.
She's in big trouble. She's in big trouble. And, you know, I'm telling you, there's going to be one day we wake up and we find out that she's fled. Richie, I got to run, but I appreciate the call. You take care, all right? All right, I'll take another call or 2, and then I've got more stuff to share. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
This is Mike from Louisiana.
Hey, Mike. What's up?
You know, this judge that threw out these cases.
No, she didn't throw out the judge didn't throw out the cases. They just got bail.
Oh, they just got bail. Oh, I was going to make the point that if she would throw these cases out, guess who appointed? The auto pen appointed her.
Yeah, there you go. All right, appreciate the call, Mike. Yeah, no, these cases have not been dismissed. No, they just got bail. That's what I opened the show with today. And, you know, Mike's pretty up to speed on things, but that's how the media are making people think that. Listen, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Brian Craig Show podcast, which is available on all podcast platforms, all right? And wherever you get your podcasts, you can search for The Brian Craig Show. And if you'd like to support my program, become a Patreon supporter. There's a link in the description of the episode to my Patreon page. And when you become a Patreon supporter, you get access to commercial-free editions of all my podcasts. You also get access to exclusive live streams that are only on the Patreon platform. And if you're a top Patreon supporter, you get your name on the screen on YouTube and a live on your thank you shout out. So the names you'll hear now are my top Patreon supporters. I want to thank SFjr, Christine, ETW, Chuck, Pamela, Nick, Wesley, Doris, Heather, David, Maria in Texas, Alice, LeeZep, Shawna, George, Brandon, John, Frank, Dale, Tina, David, Laura, Rob, Wes, Sue, Janice, Teresa, Irene, and Doris. These are my top Patreon supporters. Thank you for your support. Again, if you'd like to support the program by becoming a Patreon supporter, there's a link in the description. You're on the air. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, this.
Yeah. Okay, there you go. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a quick break, and I have some other things I want to bring up. If you're on hold, stand by. If you'd like to call in, the number is pinned in the live chat. 888-465-2631. 888-465-2631. Back after this. Welcome back. I'm Brian. It's the Brian Craig Show. Now, those of you that are dealing with this winter weather up north, holy smokes! It's going to be in the 80s today where I live in South Florida. At low 80s, so it's not going to be too hot, but it's going to be like 81, 82 degrees today. I might get my Vespa out, the Mega Scooter, and go for a ride. I don't know, but I know I feel bad for you guys. I wanted to share that. This is CNN. Listen to this. These people are out of their freaking minds. Tapper. Okay. The FEMA and Homeland Security said this is total BS, just totally made up. None of this is true. And for those of you in the audience who are liberally impaired, what this idiot is telling Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper's sucking it up and he's just loving it, it's like food to Jake Tapper, is they don't want ICE used in a discussion of the snowstorms up north because they don't even want the word ICE portrayed in a negative light that's hurting people. And this is totally fictitious. You know, reporters have one of the biggest, there's two possibilities here. One, this idiot guy that's on the air, I've never seen this guy before. This guy spends too much time grooming his beard, I must say. Either he's totally being punked by somebody at FEMA or something, or he just made it up. You know, reporters have this racket going where sources are confidential. They never have to reveal their sources. So who knows if they ever have sources? So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think he just made this up? Or do you think he's being trolled by someone? Or maybe somebody told him the joke, and like a lot of millennials, he has no sense of humor and doesn't know what the heck's going on. I mean, and, you know, Jake Tapper's supposed to be a grown-up. You think he would smell BS on that story. You know, there were times when people send me stories and they're so ridiculous. They're not true. And I know they're not true. Even though they may seem like pro-Trump or something, they're not true. I know they're not true. And a lot of times what happens is the other side float stories to try to get people like me to talk about them as if they're fact, and they're so absurd you don't do it because you know, and then you wait, you know, and things happen. You know, I'll give you an example of a recent one. There was a recent story when they knew that the pipe bomber was going to be found. About 2 weeks before the pipe bomb, this happens all the time, but this is a big one recently. About 2 weeks before the pipe bomber, they started floating this story that the pipe bomber had been identified. It was a female, white, and all this stuff. You didn't hear me talk about that story because I said, no, this story stinks. It's not well sourced enough. There's something up with this story. And then 2 weeks later, they got the real pipe bomber, right? So they float things all the time to try to get you to talk about them. So maybe some conservative trolled this guy at CNN, this story. Maybe he just made it up. But what's crazy about the story is that Jake Tapper, who's a seasoned veteran journalist, he was at ABC News before he was at CNN. He's supposed to be an adult, credible journalist, and even he didn't say, I'm calling BS on this one, right? No. Yeah, well, you know, that's how the left are. I mean, they're just not the brightest bulbs out there, right? I mean, they're always doing and saying different things. Now, one of my let me pull this up. Caitlin Bennett, she does a really good job. You know, she got harassed by the National Park Service, and you know, she was at a protest, and she does street interviews, and she's very good at the street interviews. And she was at a protest, and she was interviewing people at a protest, and she's a journalist and does street interviews. The Park Service cited her and told her she had to leave. And she's still going back and doing things, and people are trying to compare her to the church people. Now, there's just some liberals in the National Park Service that are part of the government bureaucracy that overstep their bounds. But she's very good with these street interviews, and this guy here that she's talking to is your average Democrat. You know, I'm not saying this is the average Democrat of 10 or 15 years ago, but there are so few liberal Democrats left. Most of the Democrats, especially the activists, are complete mental patients. That's why President Trump signed an executive order this week to bring back the mental institutions. I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not joking. This is your average Democrat that you have in America today, especially at the protest. Listen to Caitlin interview this guy. Okay, now before I play more of this, you know, let's just say that you're a liberal with a liberal viewpoint. I don't understand on these issues. I mean, these are, you know, getting rid of these criminal very bad criminals that are not just illegal, but they do the worst crimes people can do, murder, sex crimes and stuff. You know, it's one thing to try to make a coherent argument. This guy is just an unhinged lunatic. Every other word's the F word. He's obviously mentally ill. And I think it's very safe to say that at these protests around the country, most of them are mentally ill. Remember that one I played yesterday with the woman at Target? Maybe I'll pull that up and play that for you again if you missed. Now, you know what? Go to my podcast yesterday, and I played this, the one I did last night, and I played it in detail, the woman at Target. They're mental patients. Listen to this guy. Other than the crime of being in the country illegally. I mean, the illegals have a 100% crime rate. She's good. No, police, they don't, especially in these liberal states, they don't have the authority to enforce immigration crime. That's a federal crime. Yeah, this guy is completely unstable. She's good. She asks great questions, great follow-ups, and she's fearless. The reality check. He has these moments where he's like sane for a few seconds, and then he loses it again. He gets all schizo. He wants to arrest the people that have already been arrested. And by the way, he says go to the jails. Tim Walz and the Democrats let all these criminals out of the jails. Remember, they emptied out the jails. His impulse. Look at him, he's freaking out. Well, she tried to murder a federal agent, and when you try to murder a federal agent, they will return fire. I like how she said that. I like how you're against certain pedophiles, but not these. She's very good. I mean, she's a top tier person. And you know, I'll tell you something. The reason I shared that, she's been around for a while, and she does she does very good work. But the reason I shared that is she would be the perfect person to go to the college campuses for Turning Point. No one's ever going to be Charlie Kirk, but you know, the person that they send out there needs to be someone younger that relates to those kids. She's great. She had an answer for everything, and she had a follow-up. And if you notice, she didn't just have great questions, a great follow-up. She had some ridicule there at the end, which, you know, and all this stuff. And I cannot think of anyone better in the millennial on down age bracket that would do better at the college debates for Turning Point USA than Caitlin Bennett there. She's my pick for that. Do you guys agree with me on that, by the way? Absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a better person. She would be perfect. Oh, yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of fighting to replace that. And there's some people I like, but I haven't seen anyone at these Turning Point events that comes close to her, right? Because remember, they have to be in that age bracket, right? They have to be in that age bracket. Let me pull this up. Hold on. There's another thing I wanted to show you guys. Hold on a second here. I wanted to play the, okay, yeah, this is the one. I'll play this because it fits into that. This is, I shared this on the podcast last night, but go listen to last night's podcast. It was very good. And I played this at the tail end of yesterday's podcast. This is a deranged old gray-haired lady, and she goes into this Target in Minneapolis. She loads 2 grocery carts up with things she doesn't intend to buy, and her husband is filming her. And watch what this crazy lady does. Look at this. Oh, the Free America walkout. And then she leaves with her grocery carts there for the workers to put back all her items. You know, she thinks she accomplished something. I don't know what. You put this old lady next to that guy that Caitlin Bennett's talking to. Michael Savage was right. Liberalism is a mental disorder. No question about it. If you're new to my program, my name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Make sure you follow and subscribe if you're new. The Brian Craig Show is available on all podcast platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, just search for The Brian Craig Show and the program will come up. If you want to catch the show live in video form where you hear me taking the live calls, that's on YouTube. Search for The Brian Craig Show on YouTube. I'm here 7 days a week, and you'll enjoy this show a lot. And if you could do me the favor, also subscribe, click that notification bell, take the link to the program, and share on all your social media, and invite your friends and followers to check out the channel. All right, just take the link, share it on your socials. You can be a part of the Brian Craig Show marketing team. And I greatly appreciate that. And I know a lot of you have been doing that. And thank you so much to those of you that have been sharing the link to the program on your socials. My name is Brian Craig. This is where MAGA comes to talk. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you next time. Take care.